Hello, fellow rebel capitalists. Hope you're well. As most of you probably knew already, that Fauci is now changing the definition of vaccinated. And like I said, we all saw this one coming from a mile away, but now he's coming out and admitting it. And this poses a lot of problems for businesses, the economy, society, traveling, etc. We'll get into it in just a moment. Let's head over to the article from Epic Times. And definition of fully, we'll call it medicated, will be changed. The definition of fully medicated in the United States will be changed, Fauci said on Wednesday. It's going to be a matter of when, not if. Fauci, the head of whatever he's the head of, doesn't really matter. He appeared on CNN. So we know what the term currently means. But of course, now that they're changing it because it's going to include boosters, how many? Who knows? Will it be indefinite? I think there's far greater than a zero probability. And I think in 5 years, we could live in a world where it's not just for the cerveza sickness, but it's for who knows how many things that you'll have to inject into your body to qualify for fully medicated, which will allow you to participate in society, to travel, to go across state borders, to go to a live music venue, who knows? And hopefully that won't be everywhere in the United States, but I'm guessing that it'll at least be in states like New York and California. So the definition is used by authorities imposing mandates across the country, including the federal mandate against healthcare workers and government contractors. Yeah, so what happens to public opinion when the government comes out and says, okay, I know that this is really burdensome and that this is, but we're in a war against the cerveza sickness. So we need everyone to do their part for society, for the greater good. So all you have to do is if everyone just went out and did what they're told and got the 2 doses, then all of this is going to go away. We can get right back to 2019. And our common enemy here are those people who just value freedom and liberty. And those people are just behaving selfishly because they don't want to take these doses like the rest of us for whatever ideological reason. And therefore, they're kind of holding us up. That's kind of the attitude right now, or the kind of this narrative. But what happens to that narrative when all of those people that have drank the Kool-Aid, let's say, or have obeyed or have done what they were told to do? Now, whether it was under their own free will or not, who knows? But what happens when all of those people, now probably 70% of adult Americans, are told, well, actually, we were wrong. You were medicated, but now you're not. And in order to be medicated, you're going to have to get X number of boosters. And when is that going to end, Fauci? Ooh, I don't know. It could just be forever. Yeah, at some point in time, that's going to have to be the admission, unless we come up with some new tools to combat the cerveza sickness that are actually similar to the tools that we have for smallpox, etc., that actually offer sterilizing immunity, meaning that when you take the medicine, that you don't get it and you can't transmit it. The old definition of a medicine, we'll call it. So this, I think, is going to start to really piss people off. And even the average Joe and Jane are going, and I know there's probably at 20% or 30% of the people that will just fall right in line, regardless. They'll just, they've drank the Kool-Aid. They don't care if they have to get a shot every other day for safety and for health. That's exactly what they will do because they want to be controlled. They want to obey. They want to be conditioned. They want to sacrifice their freedom and liberty if it means buying just an ounce of perceived safety. There's always going to be that group. But I think, and especially if you listen to Dr. Chris Martenson's interview with the gentleman, the doctor in Denmark, I don't recall his name, but we did a video on it the other day, and I think he really outlined the psychology spot on as to what we're seeing right now with the cerveza sickness. But you've got that 20 or 30% of the people that just want to be ruled over, and they'll do anything. But you've got another 20% that are rebel capitalists, and they value freedom. And regardless of whether or not they've chosen to get the medicine, they're against medicine mandates. And then you've got everyone in between. And so let's just say that's another 60% of the population. And I think that 60% of the population, once they have to take 1, 2, and then it seems indefinite to participate in society or to actually hold their job. And then how does this play out in New York, where everyone, not just employees that work for a business that have over 100 employees, but even businesses that have 2 employees? How is that going to work when this definition of fully medicated continues to change? And they require more and more and more and more for you to fall under that definition. I mean, how are those businesses going to respond? How are the employees going to respond? Obviously, that's going to hamper economic activity. That's going to decrease the standard of living. But I think those people are going to get pissed off. That's what I'm trying to say here. I think that's the bottom line. And let's, for a moment, hop over to a Zero Hedge article. And I think this is an illustration of exactly what I'm talking about. This is a snapshot that Paul Joseph Watson took of this show, called Good Morning Britain. So I'm assuming it's just like Good Morning America. And they put out a Twitter poll here that says, with the new scariant, is it time to make medicines mandatory? And you can see what the public had to say. And so this isn't a poll of people who watch the George Gammon channel or people who listen to the Peter Schiff show or the Tom Woods show. This is a poll of just your average CNN viewer, basically, the average Joe and Jane, even your friend and family member Fred. Zero Hedge. And so you can see that 89% said no. And it's not like they had a small sample size here. 41% of 41,000 votes. And they left it up for 20 hours or over 20 hours. Paul Joseph Watson took a snapshot of it. Why? Because as you can imagine, once they got these results, they came in and they deleted the tweet. So, I mean, this is frustrating on several different levels. I don't even want to go down that rabbit hole as far as what this means about the mainstream media and how they're trying to hide reality, how they're trying to censor opinion, and how they're trying to crush anyone that has a dissenting view. We all know that they're doing that, but we'll just shelf that for a moment. The bottom line here is that 89% of people that you would assume would be pretty much the average American or the average Brit, your friend and family member Fred, they're saying not just no, but hell no to the medicine mandates. So now going back to the Epic Times here, Walensky and other authorities citing the waning efficacy. So listen, if you're someone right now that is gung-ho on mandates, listen, this is not my opinion about the medicines. I'm not anti-medicine in any way, shape, or form. I am anti-freedom of choice. So even Walensky here is saying that the efficacy is waning with the medicines, and recently cleared boosters for all adults 18 and over. Obviously, the reason she did that is because the efficacy fades over time. Late last month, they recommended that virtually everybody in the population get the boosters. And you have to ask yourself, okay, what's different about the booster? How is that going to magically solve the problem? If the efficacy of the medicine fades, in some cases after 2 months with the J&J, yes, that booster may give you another 2 months, but what happens then? You know? And then I think the rebuttal would be, well, it's just like the flu shot, no problem. Fantastic. The flu shot was not mandatory. And I was not required to have a flu shot to work, for heaven's sakes. I was not required to have a flu shot to go to a restaurant, as an example. So apples and oranges comparison there. But again, I think the good news is that once we get to this point, which I think is probably inevitable, unless we get some new medicines, that the public starts to open their eyes and say, wait a minute here. I thought it was just, I had to do this. And once we do this, we go back to normal. Now the rules of the game are changing, and I'm becoming more skeptical of these people that are making the rules. The drop in protection is even more pronounced against the new scariant, according to 4 studies released last week. So I think this was, I don't want to say it was obvious, but when the new scariant came out, I think I did a tweet. I might have done a couple of videos on just my opinion. I say this is not a prediction. This is not, I'm not stating this as a matter of fact. I just said that if you look at how many people or how many cases we have of the new scariant in the United States and around the world, the documented cases, and at the time there was maybe 30 or 40, something like that. And you look at how many of the 30 or 40 of have had the medicine, and I say it obviously we can't, the sample size is way too small here, but it would seem as though there's a possibility that the scariant, the new one, doesn't care if you had the medicine or not. So all those people that thought they were medicated a week ago now are no longer medicated. And so how does that play out? And how does that play out with all of these government restrictions, all of these rules coming down from the administration and people like de Blasio, these authoritarians? And so now I think it's interesting to see that these 4 studies, I wish they would have linked to the studies, for heaven's sakes, but according to them, there were 4 studies released that are saying the same thing that I had kind of a hunch about initially. Some U.S. institutions have already started requiring boosters for people to meet medicine rules, including multiple college campuses, which is completely insane when you look at the actual statistics and see how vulnerable or not vulnerable, and how often young people actually transmit the cerveza sickness. And then when you look at the negative side effects or potential side effects of the medicine, which even people that are for mandates, they have to acknowledge that there are side effects here or potential side effects. And so when you're doing a cost benefit analysis or risk reward with someone who's 18 years old and in great shape, and then just using this blanket approach that we need just everyone to do it, it makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. So Dr. Scott, as I always call him, because he's on CNBC all the time and I can never pronounce his last name, they always point out that he's a board member for Pfizer, the FDA, said last month he thinks CDC will update the definition of fully medicated to include, okay, so before, remember in the article, they were talking about a booster. Now they're talking about including boosters, plural. So, but not until next year. Oh, why, Dr. Scott? Why not until next year? My opinion, it's because Biden is looking at his numbers and he's saying, wow, these are terrible. And people are really pushing back on my approach to the cerveza sickness. I cannot come out and change it right now, or my approval ratings are going to get even worse, especially going into, I guess they call them these midterm elections with Democrats and Republicans in all of these states across America. All right, so good news there in the sense that, well, bad news in the sense they're changing the definition, but I don't think that comes as a surprise to any of you rebel capitalists. But the good news is people are really starting to push back, and I think this is going to open up more just average Americans and average Europeans' eyes, hopefully average Australians as well. And we're going to get more and more people that are part of this silent majority of rebel capitalists who value freedom, liberty, and free market capitalism. So make sure that you're always standing up for those principles that this country was built on. See you on the next video.